Welcome back. Uh-oh, we lost Scott. He's back there some.
No, I am never lost.
Okay. we,
Never.
we are talking with Scott Grace. He is the author of Mindful Masculinity, and I've got so many questions still. One of them is, and you might have answered this a little bit. So if everything is balanced, male and female, excuse me, what about will there be room for kind of strong, purpose driven, successful men? Or will that kind of just go away? Will everybody sort of just be creating and playing?
Well, I think I did answer that in my last song. In other words, the more we evolve, the more diversity is welcome and celebrated. There's
Yeah.
going to be always men who who feel like it's their purpose to, bodybuild or firefight or build roads or whatever. There's so many ways of expressing masculinity, and they're all going to be on the table, not just what's going to be missing is there's no one right way to do being a man
Yes.
anymore, and that's already the case for most people. Just don't have the pressure that our last generation had, that I had.
Yeah.
My daughter's generation is, they're just going to need a lot less therapy.
That's right. So I think maybe the difference is the image that I'm getting is you can still choose to be a firefighter and rescue people and do all of that manly stuff, but then when you're done, you can cry about it.
Oh, that's a beautiful image.
There you go.
Yeah, and maybe you can cry so much that your tears could put out a fire.
There you go. There you go. Yes. So, what about you mentioned in your book that you advocate, since we're talking about crying, you advocate grief work. And I know that a lot
Hmm.
of men are not in touch with their sadness and it's not anything that's acceptable. So, what do you say about that grief work?
It's a it's something I feel very passionately about because it's transformed me. It's melted my armor and opened my heart and connected me with the rest of humanity. It's like I grieve for men who can't grieve, and I worry about it because it's men who don't know that they can cry and that it's okay, that it's not just safe, but that it's a strength, it's a superpower. Their unfelt tears turn into aggression,
Yes.
either towards themselves, which is depression and strong inner criticism, or more often than not, towards others. And any man who has hit his wife or started a war is a man who has lost connection with how to grieve, how to mourn,
Yes.
how to acknowledge loss.
Yes. I absolutely agree. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about my husband.
Oh,
He is a major Dodger fanatic, not a fan, a fanatic. And
okay.
so I don't know if you heard, living in Mexico, but Dodgers won the World Series. And it was very sweet because he's a very emotional man. He had a stroke.
Oh,
Yeah, he had a stroke about 10 years ago, which really unleashed a lot of pent up emotions in him. Not that he wasn't
awesome.
emotional before, but he
Uh-huh.
was sitting there watching the game. And when the Dodgers won, I've never seen him do this. He was sobbing hysterically and laughing hysterically at the same time. And it was so cute. But it's that kind of depth of emotion that men just don't let themselves feel. And he didn't know whether to be happy or sad. He was sad because now there's no more Dodgers for 6 months. And he's walking around saying, no, there's no baseball for 6 months. He's very upset about that. But he's also just ecstatic about the fact that they won. So yes, emotions, men, yes.
Oh, let's do a little riffing off of that.
Okay.
So The LA Dodgers have won it big. And your husband is dancing quite a jig. He's ecstatic. He's so happy. He's crying tears of joy. But now he's asking, how am I to be employed? If I have to rest for 2 months before the season begins, what do I do with myself? How do I grin? Is there some kind of victory to win? Because I need something to put my energy in. So my head is spinning and I'm happy that they've won. But now I'm saying, what the hell now do I do for fun? What's going to elicit tears and laughter? This off season is a disaster. I don't like emptiness. I want it filled. So give me something to believe in and I'll foot the bill.
That's great. You're amazing. That's wonderful. I will definitely play that for him. Maybe it'll soothe those tears and then sadness.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, what else? You talked about grief work, and so tell us a little bit. You have a lot of techniques that you mention in your book. Tell us
Mm.
a few techniques to help men become authentic or
Mhm.
mindfully masculine. What are some of those things that you recommend that they do?
Well, anything that increases self-awareness, body awareness. Men have been raised to be left brain, which means
Yes.
intellectual, logical, and the right brain has been dormant. Uh, while I was writing the book, I was sitting in a park in Mexico, and somebody said, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a writer. He's like, what are you writing? I'm writing a book about men and masculinity, the changing roles, and how men can develop their feminine side. And he said, why would any man want to develop their feminine side? It's emasculating. It's ridiculous. And I tried to convince him. It was a losing battle. I should have recognized that that was not a question that he asked. It was a statement of his position, inarguable. But it was fun to try. So I said, well, another word for the feminine side is the right brain. And wouldn't you like to have a whole brain fully functional? Or do you just want half the brain? Because that's what most men operate on, half of their brain power. I thought, this is a pretty good argument. I like this argument.
Good
I'm
luck.
I'm I'm winning. I'm winning. And of course, that's one of the things we talk about in the book is
Winning.
how the desire to be right,
Yes.
and how that keeps us away from our partners and ourselves. And it's just it's a detour, and it's an egoic strategy for avoiding shame. We can talk about that for 10 hours. But anyway, there is a whole side of the brain. It knows things without knowing how it knows things. That's what's intuitive. That's how geese fly from Canada to a little lake in Mexico every winter. How do they find this little lake? How do the whales in Alaska find this little lagoon in Mexico every year to mate? Well, there's something. It's like an inner GPS, and in our brains, it's the pineal gland. It's also called the intuition, and it just knows without knowing.
Yeah.
Now, if you're only intellectual, that sounds like what? What are you talking about? How can I know something without studying it? It's called innate intelligence, not intelligence that you can learn in school. And most people have to unlearn logical thinking in order to make room to let innate intelligence, the inner GPS, uh, speak to you, and to learn to trust it. And unfortunately, men more than women have more work to do there, because women have more permission in this culture to have women's intuition, whatever the hell that means, and also to trust their feelings. And feelings lead you to your intuition. In fact, your intuition speaks to you through your feelings. So the biggest thing I would change, if I could change one of the messages that men get, the message, don't trust your feelings. That's the most damaging message, because if you don't trust your feelings, you can't hear your heart, your common sense. Everything is about rules and what's right and what's wrong, and those rules are taught to you by outside forces. That's where you become a good puppet, a good cult member, a good nationalist, where you believe your country right or wrong. You can't accept those kinds of ideas unless you're divorced, disconnected from the right side of your brain.
Yep. Yep. It's interesting that you just said your definition of intuition is word for word my definition that I teach in my courses. I say
Oh,
intuition is knowing that you know and not knowing how or why. There you go.
oh, love it.
Yes. Yeah, it's
I
so
didn't
true.
know I was stealing from you.
You stole it right out of my book. My goodness. But yeah,
You didn't
that's
trademark it, did ya?
I didn't, darn it.
Good,
All
because it's universal truth.
that is true. Yeah. So, okay. So, tactics, getting in touch with your intuition. What other tactic would you recommend?
All right. Oh, this is exciting. I mean, there's definitely a lot of practical things in the book, uh, but I'm drawing a blank. Um, this is not a technique, but it is a direction that uh, when how are you feeling?
Mhm.
When a woman asks you that, I would say to men, start looking into your body and reporting about body sensations, because there's got to be a break from the trance of fine, I'm great, how are you? There's got to be a break so that there can be the beginning and dawning of intimacy, which is into me see. One of the simplest things for a man to practice is, yeah, I'm noticing some tension in my lower back. I'm wanting to yawn. I was bored out of my skull all day, and I'm grateful to be home. But to start with physical reporting, because that's what's in the present moment and it's unarguable. This is what both men and women, in my judgment, need the most in communication, to learn to speak inarguable truths.
Yes. Honesty and truth. Yes, absolutely. In fact, there was something that you mentioned in your book. There's a different approach to honesty in men and women. How would you explain those two things?
I did say that, hoping no one would read that and ask me that on an interview.
Sorry.
So you're so intuitive. You know exactly what I was hoping you wouldn't ask.
Oh, we'll just
So
we'll cut that out of the interview. No worries.
absolutely, but for those of us who want to hear what's coming out of my mouth, including myself, um, men would rather go directly to the point. In other words, in this moment, I feel angry, rather than, you wouldn't believe what happened to me today. Let me start at the beginning. So for women, expressing feelings is a richer experience, where you get to the heart, to the center of the chocolate gooey middle, by exploring. It's almost like foreplay. I don't want to just tell the direct truth about what I'm experiencing right now. I want to bring people and myself there gradually by telling a story. Men feel most empowered in terms of honesty the closer they get to this moment.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah, like right now, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't even have the words to talk about what happened to me today. That's a powerful statement that could be the beginning of a conversation, or it could be the awareness that a man needs some space to sort through his feelings before talking about it. But whatever it is, men feel the most masculine in terms of communication by reporting exactly what a video camera would pick up rather than interpretations and stories uh, about what you think about what happened to you.
Yeah. And the way you're describing it, it sounds like that would, the way a man would do that would make him feel more powerful versus vulnerable.
Yeah. It is I would say, if done the way that I'm practicing it, it's both. It's both.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In my teachings, I like to define words. It's one of my passions. And what I tell people is that there's a big difference between truth and honesty. Okay. Honesty is, oh, I just hate that person.
Uh,
Truth would be, oh, that person is showing me a mirror of myself that I really don't like, and I need to see what that's about for me. So, does that make sense in terms of how a man versus a woman would see something? Or
I try to inspire and enroll both men and women to do the latter, because what you just described is the difference between um, vomiting unexamined truth and taking responsibility
right?
and looking at what's going on inside me.
Yes,
That's mindfulness as well. So
yes, yeah, yeah. So, one more question before we get to your Dr. Seuss
look at
presentation.
you. I can tell what's dessert for you already.
Yeah, I know. I saw on something that you sent me that apparently more women are buying this book than men.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
pretty interesting. Why do you think that is?
I do think that women are more likely to read a book uh, about something that's going to expand their understanding of men, because women are more taught the value of relationships. They're fascinated by relationships. Men are taught more about accomplishments, and also they men, there's a chapter in the book, Too Cool for School, about that, just about how men think that if they acknowledge that they're a beginner, or they're a student of relationship, or even a student of what it means to be a man, that in and of itself may bring up shame and embarrassment. And that's, oh my God, I just remembered when I was like 18 years old, and I was in Washington Square Park, and I had just bought like 5 different self-help spirituality books. And this this performer, who had like the attention of hundreds of people, asked for a volunteer. So I raised my hand. He said, come on up. And while I was coming up, all of the books dropped out of the bag. And he goes over and he picks them up. He starts holding them up and making jokes about them. I had never been more embarrassed. I wish I could have disappeared. There was such a stigma around, for me, being a young man and admitting that I don't have it all together, that I'm
Mm,
actually reading these kinds of books.
yeah,
So that's
interesting.
what it takes for a man. He has to admit that he doesn't have it all together.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense. So, anything that you would like to add to everything that you've said? We only have a few more minutes to get our Dr. Seuss fix here.
Well, no, just if people want to find the book,
Yes.
and if they want to find me and connect with me, is that going to be available? Or should I mention it now?
Oh, yeah, mention it. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So the book is called Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them. Although maybe I should have called it a book for women and the men who want to keep them. That might, there it is.
There.
And it's a synthesis of comedy, memoir, my stories, and some teaching. Um, so you can find that on Amazon. And then on my website, you can sign up and stay connected to my musings. You can actually watch the Dr. Seuss material and lots of other, some of my stand-up comedy. And it's a good place to just hang out for a while. And that's scottsongs.com, www.scott, SCOTTSONGS.com.
Great. And you're on Facebook?
You might find me on Facebook and YouTube. Oh my God. I haven't done the usual other things people do, Instagram and TikTok and all of that.
Yeah,
I haven't.
that's
Sue
okay.
me.
You're forgiven. You're absolutely forgiven.
I needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right, Scott, we've all been waiting for your Dr. Seuss. Give us a little background about how that got started and then just go right into it.
Well, once upon a time, I was reading Dr. Seuss to my daughter. She was 2 years old. I closed the book, tucked her in, and I couldn't get the rhyming out of my head. And everywhere I was going, it just kept going. Like my whole day was being narrated by an inner voice that had this playful Seussian style. So, and then I just noticed that it was kind of profound. It was like, yeah, hey, there's some valuable stuff here. So I went to my computer and stayed there for about 2 months. I took frequent bathroom breaks, and out came my first poem, and it went viral on the internet. And I never planned it, but then the next one came, and within a course of 6 years, six poems came out of me. Most of the material is in the book Mindful Masculinity, and it's on my YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun to see the audience interact with me, so I do recommend you check it out live. And the first one that came through me, I believe that this is a good one for men. It talks about the ego, not the ego that Freud would use the word, which he just said, this is your sense of self. I would say this is your neurotic sense of self, your fictional sense of identity, your mask, M-A-S-K, your masculinity, the face that you learn to wear to survive and to get along, but that's not really who you are. So it starts out, the ego will travel with you on this earth and be your companion for worser or worse. It pretends it's your friend, your bestest amigo, and it pours on the guilt. That's the beverage of ego. It's there to protect you, to help you be strong. So it has to remind you you're doing it wrong. You're weak and you're lazy and you don't have a clue. That's your drill sergeant ego trying to motivate you. Your ego wants you to be all you can be, so it gives you these pep talks all day and for free. Oh, the places you'll go and the guilt trips you'll travel as the ego plays judge and bangs down on its gavel. But you always can get some relief from your pain by projecting it onto the others you'll blame. For that is the ego at its beastiest best. It nurses its grievances close to its chest. Republicans, liberals, your parents, your ex. The world is just teeming with folks to correct. If only these fools could conform to your ways, you could get on with life without further delays. The ego loves finding new gripes to complain about, turns molehills to mountains of yikes to feel pain about. Sometimes the ego stuff gets you so stuffy, you come down with a cold or an ouchie more roughy. But there's no time for rest, so get up out of bed. If you're just here and now, you won't get ahead. Your to-do list must buzz like the bees when they're busying. Keep filling your days till they're endlessly dizzying. Oh, the places you'll go and the people you'll see, all through the lens of what's in it for me. Because the ego believes there is something it lacks, and until it is found, it won't let you relax. Perhaps you will find it in the next one you date. True love at first sight with a soul kind of mate. The romance is hot till the climate turns cold. Because when egos collide, they do not make a whole. It's great till the love gets obscured by control, because when egos combine, they do not make a whole. Now, it goes on for about 5 more minutes, and because of our time, what I'd like to do is just jump to the end. So
Okay.
you can get, because there's a happy ending here.
Oh, good.
So one day when you failed and succeeded enough, you witness your ego exposed in the buff, and you realize behind all its protective clothing, the ego's been hiding a state of self-loathing. And beyond that, you realize the biggest of deals. You've dreamt up the ego. It's not even real. So, for richer, for poorer, in all kinds of health, you make a commitment to loving yourself. You release the projections you placed upon others and find through forgiveness that peace is discovered. You realize the love that you search for outside you is what you are made of and can't be denied you. So you let go your plans and your potions and pills, put some logs on the fire and learn how to chill. Your old superstitions have gone up in smoke, like you can't rest in peace until after you croak. You no longer fear death, or for that matter, life, because you know that all matters are safe and all right. While resting in peace, you will be inspired to go out in the world with some newfound desires, desires that spring from your heart and your soul, and wherever they take you, you're going there whole. Because the ego is now in the passenger seat. It lets down the window and takes in the treats. You're not in a hurry. You're going there slow, because the journey's as rich as the places you'll go. Where you are going, you don't need to know, because the journey's as rich as the places you'll go.
Wow. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much, Scott. We're out of time, but reach out to Scott, buy his book, watch his Dr. Seuss performances. They're wonderful. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you and all that you're doing.
Thank you, Royce.
Thank
Mm,
you.
mhm.